Hey everyone, we're back.
That's
It's
us.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
The
Life has been happening, and everything's fine outside, of course.
Yeah, the whole world has not caught fire. I don't know what you're talking about.
Nope. No, that's ridiculous. Don't even. It's fine.
Yeah, today,
We're here to talk about episode 3.
yeah, we don't have a special homeless person guesting, because they're also in self quarantine. Sorry if the audio sounds slightly different as well. We're both recording this from our homes, as previously we also just recorded this from our homes, so actually there should be no difference. But yeah, I'm Pete. That's Ben. Um, we're talking episode 3 of Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. The best of the prequels, some might say.
I think most would say. It's not saying a lot, but
It's not saying much, but it's something to say about it.
it is indeed something to say about it. Yeah. So, like usual, I usually ask you when was the last time you watched Revenge of the Sith. Did you watch this in preparation of this, or?
I did not this time, although I have seen it within the last year.
Okay.
About like couple months ago, when I finished watching Clone Wars, I watched Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. I watched it last year, before episode 9 came out. So, yeah. I've seen it fairly recently. It's not the worst of the prequels by any means.
No, not at all.
It's the best performed, best written, best visual effects of the three. It's got
Yeah, I'd say so, but it's still very much reliant on the CGI
oh
aspect that was started in episode 2.
for sure, and there's also John Williams again, delivers a fantastic score, but
Great.
the biggest problem I have
Duel of
with this
Fates, very
film,
good.
Duel of Fates, is Phantom Menace, buddy.
Oh fuck.
Anakin versus
I,
Obi-Wan / Battle of the
I'm handing
Heroes.
in, I'm handing in my Star Wars card.
Yeah. um, yeah, no, this. I think the biggest problem I have with this film is just purely the pacing of this film. It's all over the
Yeah,
place.
it needs to cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like I don't. Other people have tried to do like YouTube videos and whatever on rewriting episode. Oh, not episode 3. Sorry, the whole of the prequel trilogy. I don't think I have the expertise to do that. I'm not going to pretend that I do. I don't know what the better
God,
version
no.
of this prequel trilogy is, but I feel like because episode 1 features Anakin as like a 9-year-old boy, and episode 2, Anakin and Obi-Wan are like doing their own shenanigans things, and the Clone Wars hasn't started going yet. Episode 3 jumps to like 3 or 4 years later. The Clone Wars are
Full
raging,
swing.
and it has to cover everything. Everything. My voice went weird there. Everything from the Clone Wars in full swing to the Empire being the power of the galaxy.
Well, Revenge of the Sith basically takes place when the Clone Wars are like basically at their end, like very very close to being finished. So, which is strange because the last episode started them. So we basically missed an entire galactic conflict in the interim.
Yeah, and you say it's towards the end. It is on a technical level, but for all we know, that there is no like end of the war in sight at the beginning of this film, because you might
Yes.
be like, oh well, the Separatists are losing because the Republic wins pretty easily at the end of the day, but not really, because they just invaded Coruscant, the capital of the Republic, and stole Emperor Palpatine. Now, spoiler alert, he was in on it the whole time. It was all planned,
Yeah.
but you know, it surely this the war was like full swing. There no sign of slowing down at the start of this film, and it gets all the way from there to, as I say, the Empire being set up. And I've heard a rumor.
Isn't it said in the opening crawl that it's a desperation attack though, like a desperation surprise attack in Coruscant?
Let me have a look, because I've got the opening crawl in front of me. In a stunning move, the fiendish droid leader General Grievous has swept into the Republic capital and kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine.
I guess not then.
No, this is the strange thing about this, and the Clone Wars TV show has somewhat retroactively fixed this, but also in the opening crawl to Revenge of the Sith, it does say
there are heroes on both sides.
Yeah, there are heroes on both sides.
The funniest fucking line in an opening crawl ever.
Who are the heroes on the Separatist side exactly?
Oh, like Count Dooku. He's like, it's like a hero in the Overwatch sense, like Reaper and Widowmaker are heroes.
Yeah, it's I going back to like how much is in this film though. I've heard a rumor, and I can't find any evidence under a quick Google search to like substantiate this, so I don't know whether this is true. But allegedly, there was like an original cut of this, which was 4 hours long.
Jesus.
Now, as I say, there's a lot of stupid Star Wars rumors out there, so I'm not sure I believe that. Like 4 hours.
I'm not sure I believe that either.
Is a hell of a long film. And
that's so long.
That's for context. I think the extended cut of Return of the King is like 3.5 hours.
Ugh.
So.
The Hateful Eight, that's a very also long movie, like 3.5 hours or so.
Yeah. And the actual runtime of Revenge of the Sith, theatrical release, is 2 hours and 20 minutes. So that's a whole extra film basically missing, supposedly. So I'm not sure I believe that. I do believe that there was probably quite a lot cut, and I also could totally believe that the original script for Revenge of the Sith would have put it at about 4 hours, and then they started chopping because there was no way they were going to shoot 4 hours of film. But I do not believe that there is a 4-hour cut of this film anywhere.
I don't think so. Like, you have to think that those scenes would have seen the light of day by now.
Yeah, there are plenty of deleted scenes, but they're like about 20 minutes of deleted scenes, not an hour and 40 minutes of deleted scenes, and included in these deleted scenes, do you know who the character Shakti is?
Yes, vaguely.
I think she has 2 death scenes in Revenge of the Sith deleted scenes. She also dies in the Force Unleashed video game. She gets it rotten. She dies a lot.
So nice they killed her twice.
Yeah. So yeah, this film begins with Palpatine has been captured, but actually he's in on it because he's Darth Sidious, and the Separatists are trying to flee Coruscant, and there's this massive space battle raging above Coruscant.
Probably the most technically impressive, or at least like visually impressive space battle in the franchise so far.
Yes,
I'd say more so than the one in Episode 9.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's all in a one shot, or not all of it, but like the first several minutes are a one shot, which is really really cool to see, like that sort of experimentation being done. And I'm a sucker for a well executed oneer. This is a well executed oneer. Long time before people were talking about how cool oneers were. I mean, it's mostly CGI, but I don't think that really detracts from it in any way, shape, or form. And it's also fun. There's some fun banter and some comical scenes going on here, and that kind of goes on right up until the end of this intro sequence. This intro sequence gives us some really good Obi-Wan and Anakin stuff. It's again the sort of stuff
where the fun begins.
Yeah, exactly. And the Clone Wars show has really shown how great the relationship is, but I feel like more so than anything we've seen in the previous 2 films, this was the film that kind of established what the bantering friendship should be like on screen, which then set the framework for the TV show. It's a shame that we don't get more of it, because again, for some reason, this film decides to split Obi-Wan and Anakin off for most of its runtime, and I get that's probably to give Anakin time to turn to the dark side without Obi-Wan breathing down his neck, but still.
Do what he calls.
Yeah. So that they make their way to Grievous's ship. They fight their way through it. Have you ever watched any of the deleted scenes for this film, by the way?
I have not, no.
There is a brilliant deleted scene during this sequence where they get surrounded by droids, and they're having to come up with a plan as to how to break free. And like Obi-Wan just like starts twirling his mustache, and Anakin goes, no, I think we should, and then he like strokes his eyebrow, and Obi-Wan's like, no, that one won't work. What about? And he then strokes his chin, and they're like, yeah, okay, we'll do that one. And then they slice the floor out from underneath them, and it's just like the stupidest, like, but it's so good.
Dumb.
It's so good at the same time, and I kind of wish that little things like that had stayed in. But this film is a very long and bloated film, so
Yeah.
it's probably for the best.
I also feel like tone-wise, I mean, there's still a couple of silly scenes even in this like stretch of the film, like R2-D2, especially when he's doing his little flamey bit with the oil.
Mm-hmm.
Very comedic. The elevator scene also comedic.
Hmm.
I forget the exact dialogue in that scene, but it's very like tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
Which is strange because then you have the whiplash of them fighting Dooku, and it's very serious.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like this is also kind of it's Star Wars ramped up to 11, because a lot of Star Wars does have this kind of like wacky comedic dialogue
Banter,
right up until, oh shit, someone's dying and the father is a psychopathic murderer on a galactic scale, blah 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 blah. So yeah, so they get to Palpatine, and then Count Dooku shows up and does a front flip. This ancient 80-year-old man does a front flip, as you do.
Christopher Lee definitely doing front flips.
Mm-hmm. And then they have a fight. It's one of many. There are a lot of lightsaber fights in this film.
A lot of lightsaber fights in this film.
It's cool as well because, again, as you said earlier, there's a massive gap from an audience perspective of what's happened between episode 2 and episode 3. And again, the show has kind of bridged that gap, but at the time the show was not around, so
Nope.
There was a 2D show, but it didn't really have much story. It was mostly just like action set pieces.
Yeah. I've never actually seen that, actually.
It's alright. It's by the team behind Samurai Jack, I believe.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's not.
It's about the same.
It's more like, as I say, like fun, dumb action rather than the Clone Wars TV show, which is very much plot. Yeah. But it does do some good work of like showing how these characters have changed and grown, and one of them is Obi-Wan says before they face Dooku, this time we do it. Oh yeah, even Anakin, I can't remember which one of them says it, but one of them says this time we do it together, and then they fight him together, and
I want to say it's Obi-Wan who says it. Yeah,
and you see that they work better as a team than them getting their asses kicked when they fought him in episode 2. It's also just a weird, I get that they have to make way for Anakin to become the villain of this film. Spoiler alert. But it's weird to me that they set up Count Dooku as the villain very late in episode 2, and then
they kill him very early in episode 3.
Exactly, yeah. And replace him with Grievous, who's like the interim villain in episode 2. It's just in episode 3 even. It's just weird.
There's a lot of villains in this movie.
There are a lot of villains in this movie. But not Dooku, because he gets his head chopped off by Anakin. Obi-Wan gets knocked unconscious, and then Anakin defeats Dooku and has him at his mercy, and then Palpatine says, do it, and Anakin is like, it's not the Jedi way, but he does it anyways, yeah.
It's the magic words.
Yeah. And he then rescues Palpatine. Palpatine tries to convince him to leave Obi-Wan, but he doesn't leave Obi-Wan because he's not a bad guy yet.
Nope.
And then they start escaping through the ship, and they get captured by Grievous, who we get introduced to at this point.
Yes, this is the first time he's on screen, I believe.
Yeah. What do you think about General Grievous as a character?
He just kind of wheezes that he exists. He's amusing. I like what they do with him in the Clone Wars TV show, but like that's neither here nor there.
What is his purpose in this movie, other than to sell toys?
His purpose is just to sell action figures.
Yeah.
With extendable arms.
Yeah.
That's why General Grievous exists.
Like, literally, as you say, I think it is his first time appearing on screen. I don't think you see any like brief scenes with him before they rescue Palpatine.
No.
And it's like, hey, we killed off Dooku. Now
We have now.
yeah,
Let's
let's
reach into the toy box and see what we got.
immediately replace him. I feel like it might honestly be just like Christopher Lee was like, "Fuck this! I'm not doing another 2 hours and 20 minutes of this bullshit."
Christopher Lee's not even in the movie, episode 2 for 2 hours and 20 minutes. He's in there for like maybe a half hour.
Yeah,
But like,
it was
that's
too
all
much.
he could grace it with.
I mean, he had to fight. I almost called him Baby Yoda for some reason. I put Baby Yoda in the brain. He had to fight adult Yoda. In that, which was probably just a tennis ball that they waved around in front of him. So
unless he actually got to, well, his stunt double probably got to actually fight.
yeah, touche. Yeah, yeah. It's weird, but yeah, General Grievous shows up and
he's fine. He's amusing to watch, but he's not very like interesting at all. Like.
Yeah,
whatever.
He gets given a little bit more depth in the Clone Wars TV show, and I know there's quite a bit of depth to him in the old comic books and whatever. But in this film, he is just an action figure.
Yes.
But they defeat him, but he escapes because he's part android. He can survive in space, and then they make their way to the bridge, and they realize that the ship is crashing because the whole time that they've been rescuing Palpatine, the Republic has still been firing on this ship.
The ship beaten out of it, yeah.
Here's a question for you. If you had the leader of your political infrastructure, the equivalent of the president, but imagine it's not the president, because I feel like people wouldn't really care about the president. Yeah. He's been captured.
He's on an enemy ship.
And you're sending in 2 elite soldiers to go and rescue him. What might you not do during that?
I might continue to shoot at it repeatedly until it explodes and has to crash onto my heavily populated planet.
Yeah, you might do that. Which is what they do. So yeah, the ship starts crashing. There's some fun slapstick with R2-D2 just getting like thrown the fuck around in the hangar bay.
Oh yeah.
And Anakin tries to land the ship, but then the ship rips in half in the entry to atmosphere, so then he tries to land half a ship.
How does that... okay, fine. That's fine. It's probably fine.
I mean, it doesn't have any engines anymore, but I think he just positions it for a big strip of relatively unpopulated land in the...
He lands it on an actual landing strip that probably gets the shit torn out of it.
Yeah, he does do that.
I really hope that, like, there's a scene, like, it's not one scene, but, like, as it's crashing, it blows up a fucking, like an air control tower, and I'm like, man, I really hope that, that thing was evacuated beforehand. That would really suck.
I'm pretty sure you see a clone trooper in the top of it.
Oh,
yeah.
Guess not.
Yeah. Also,
it's just a clone, whatever.
Here's a second question for you, though. Of all the spaceships you've ever seen in Star Wars, have you ever seen a ship that needs a landing strip?
No.
/ takeoff strip?
Is it like... Oh, God. Is it like... Okay, those two... Either those ships that actually do acquire that, which is ridiculous, or there's, like, old-timey aero enthusiasts who still live on Coruscant and they're just kind of flying around in, like, they're like, pleasure planes or some shit.
One of the two. I mean, I live in the countryside. We've been having people flying their planes around still, despite the fact that we're all supposed to be staying home all the time. So I wouldn't put it past stupidity of intelligent, in inverted commas, creatures.
Sentience.
Yeah. But, the intro sequence does give us plenty of great memes. Another happy landing.
Yes. Another happy landing.
So they get back to Coruscant, and Obi-Wan tells Anakin that he gets to be like viewed as the hero who returns Chancellor Palpatine, and Obi-Wan's going to go back to the Jedi Temple, and then they start walking towards the Senate building, and then standing in a slight shadow, but in like total view of every single person who's at the Senate building, is Padme,
who is very pregnant.
Very pregnant, and Anakin, a Jedi, goes over, hugs her, and kisses her,
yeah.
touches her belly, and you think,
whispers.
you are in clear view of everyone right now. Like, this is
Yeah,
not
they're
even
not doing a good job
slightly
hiding
discreet.
it.
And the thing is, as well, is that set is 100% a green screen.
Yep.
So it's not like they were filming on location and that's just the location they had for filming or whatever. They could put any background in they wanted. They could have them be in a discreet little alleyway away from the Senate building, but they don't.
Well, they had to save time and space, you know? Time and space on the green screen. They had to save time.
But yeah, she's pregnant with his child, and he's incredibly happy about it, and thus ends the opening act to the film. It's about 20 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a pretty long intro.
It's a really long intro in a film that has so much ground to cover. It's a good intro, but it's so long. And I give it more of a pass than, say, Return of the Jedi. It's incredibly long intro, which is about a third of the film. But
do you consider that whole sequence the intro?
For Revenge of the Sith or Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi.
I consider the entirety of Tatooine to be an intro sequence. It's not related to the plot of the rest of the film at all, other than getting Han back.
I mean, they kind of have to...
No, absolutely, they have to get him back, but it's just like half an hour, dude. But we'll get to that one. Yeah, so Anakin then has bad dreams about Padme dying.
Yeah, he has he's having false visions about her dying.
And just like he did in Attack of the Clones, he is decidedly going to stop this from happening. And this then...
Joined your channel.
Who the fuck?
Hello. It's me.
It's you?
It is me, the Evil Twin.
Oh.
I watched the movie yesterday.
So here's the weird thing, is that you're not recording your audio, so this will only be coming up on, like, the... I'm glad I'm recording some backup audio.
Oh, okay.
We have a guest person in.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ryan. I am Ben's twin brother. He loves Star Wars almost as much as... probably as much. Probably as much, yeah. I watched this movie yesterday, last night. I slept through parts of it. Because it was only towards the end, and then I woke up again, and I still caught like the final duel and stuff. It was overlaid with a commentary track by my favorite podcast, Chapo Trap House. So,
You're seriously gonna come in here and shout out another podcast
gonna
on
shill
our Star
for
Wars
the podcast, asshole. I will always shout out Chapo Trap House. But yeah, I'll just pipe in at appropriate times.
Fair enough. Yeah, I feel like the setup of Anakin turning to the dark side because of his trying to save Padme is both very like Shakespearean. It's very like kind of Macbeth-esque, and it is also it's set up in the previous movie. This is one of the better elements of this film. Again, I feel like they needed more time to develop it better, and again,
yeah, I think it just needed more time.
Yeah, and the Clone Wars show does a good job of doing that, but again, supplementary material should not be necessary to get the proper experience out of a piece of art.
A film,
yeah
no. One thing I noticed in that scene just after the Battle over Coruscant, when Anakin runs over to go talk to her, and she tells him she's pregnant, their chemistry is immediately more apparent than in the last movie. Yeah, I mean, their chemistry was basically non-existent in Episode 2. In this, I feel like the acting overall is a lot better. It's less stiff. That's not to say it's not bad. It's still pretty bad in my opinion. But and also there's a few really bad lines.
Yeah, but as we kind of said at the top of this, overall, just any performance in this film is better than any of the previous performances in previous films, really.
In the prequels, anyway.
In the prequels, and I'm now starting to forget the order of events, so I might skip over some stuff unless any of you remember crystal clear
Ryan,
what happens next.
Yeah, you just watched this. So what happens after Padme and Anakin talk? There's a lot of setup, a lot of politicking, some cross-stitching between the separatists and everything happening on Coruscant. There's a lot of scheming. The Jedi are trying to maneuver around Palpatine. Palpatine is trying to maneuver around the Jedi. Nobody trusts each other. Everybody comes off to everybody else looking like a bad guy, except for Palpatine, who actually is the bad guy. But the Jedi aren't doing a very good job of acquitting themselves. No, the Jedi in general in the prequels are very... They come off as, like, almost comically inept. And, like, very, like, just tone-deaf and, like, very... just incompetent.
Well, it's interesting, because in this movie, they are very obviously and uncompromisingly departing from their code, from their ethics, in order to get around what Palpatine is doing. Which is, directly brought up a number of times by Anakin. Obi-Wan asks him to, spy on Palpatine, and Anakin is like, doesn't this go against the code? And Obi-Wan can essentially only shrug.
Yeah, and I think this happens after he's put on the Jedi Council, isn't it?
Yeah, and Anakin is... So, Palpatine basically asks the Jedi, hey, can you put this guy on the council?
As my, representative, or, the person who's the go-between between the Jedi and the Senate.
Yeah, it seems like a purely ceremonial, sort of.
Well, yeah, exactly, because they make him part of the council, but they don't grant him the title of Master, which immediately makes Anakin feel like he's being...
This is outrageous. This is unfair.
It's outrageous, yeah.
It's a very awkward moment where they're like, just sit down, you fucking idiot. And he sulks and heads over to his chair.
So
yeah, Sam L just kind of likes, he glares at him and he's like, sit down and get out.
Here's a quick, random question about just, the logistics of this fictional universe. Is there a set number of seats in the Jedi Council chambers?
Yeah, right?
Because if there is, then did they get out an extra one for Anakin? In which case, him coming to this meeting, he's like, well, there's an extra seat, so I guess I'm on the council. Or is he sat in, someone else's seat who would normally hologram in?
Someone else's seat.
In which case, it's going to be super awkward if they do hologram in, because they'll be inside his body.
Yeah. My guess is that he's taking somebody's show who's off fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose...
Ki-Adi-Mundi, who also holographs in later.
Yeah, so he's not ranked as Jedi Master, but he is on the council, and then the council turns around through Obi-Wan. They don't do it as a council thing. They get Obi-Wan to do it as, his master and his friend to say, hey, spy on Palpatine for us. And Anakin is not happy.
To Anakin's credit, it's not just about Padme that makes him... Padme is the catalyst for him turning to the dark side, but...
The Jedi are becoming more and more corrupt as well.
They're becoming more corrupt. They're becoming, shady, and it's like a wartime situation. And they're like...
Anakin is a patriot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
A republic, if not its form of government, at least what it represents in his mind.
And also, again, I'm hesitant to bring up too much supplementary material, but I do think it's worth noting. At the time of recording this, Season 7 of Clone Wars is not over yet, so we don't know how that ends. But even without that, the way that Season 5 of Clone Wars ends puts Anakin in a place where he would probably already be incredibly pissed off at the Jedi and incredibly, losing... his love for the Order, and this is just going to kind of push him over the edge. So
yes, it's like a combination of his own, entitlement issues, and also Padme is the main catalyst.
Yeah,
and Palpatine obviously preys upon that.
Hard to blame him. He's been told he's the prophesied chosen one. I mean, you would kind of get your head up your own ass too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the films should have it. The prequels basically are the story of how he turns to the dark side and how the Republic is destroyed and replaced by the Empire. But the main thing that it does right is it really emphasizes why he turned to the dark side.
But even so, in this movie, it feels so abrupt.
Yeah, no, because it has pacing issues and it has a shit ton of ground to cover.
Mm.
They don't stick the landing.
But yeah, so and then they basically send off a bunch of other characters to go and do other stuff during this film. So Obi-Wan is sent to try and find Grievous.
He's sent to Utapau.
Anakin wanted the job himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's passed over in favor of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and
Another thing he gets jilted about.
Yeah, and again, we kind of praised in the previous podcasts about the kind of visual design of these films. Utapau is a really cool looking place.
Yeah, it is.
I really like the design there. Yoda is sent to Kashyyyk.
Kashyyyk, the first time it's seen on film.
Yeah, and it's cool. I kind of wish we spent less time there because, again, it's time that's kind of wasted where it could be other places, if that makes sense. But it is cool to see it, and it's also intentionally the reason why we're spending time seeing what Obi-Wan and Yoda are up to is to take them away from Anakin and away from what's going on Coruscant, so they can't be there to stop him, essentially.
It's basically, it's the film is basically putting them both on buses so that they, they're the convenient place for Anakin to be Palpatine's little puppet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weirdness with the timeline here too.
Oh yes.
Pow and Kashyyyk. Everything there seems to be happening in the space of a day. Obi-Wan's adventure and killing Grievous, and Yoda kind of overseeing the beachhead battle. That all seems to be happening in a single day, whereas Anakin's
it's weeks, months.
Months, weeks?
Yeah. It really is. I can just about believe that Kashyyyk takes a couple of days because it's like a massive battle, like it could be kind of like a stalemate thing. But Obi-Wan's adventure absolutely feels like it takes place within a day. But what I will say is that I think one of the things that these films are wildly inconsistent about is hyperspace and how that works. My understanding from like growing up on novels and video games and the role-playing game and whatever is that hyperspace takes days, possibly weeks, to get from one end of the galaxy to the other. The Star Wars films and Clone Wars and Rebels seem to imply that hyperspace jumps, it's never really making super clear how far they're jumping, but can take place over the course of hours, like in A New Hope, where them getting to Alderaan takes hours because Luke gets some training during that. It might even take days, we don't know. And then there's other times when they jump and it's 5 seconds. So my guess is that the implication here is that like Obi-Wan hyperspace travels to Utapau, does all of his stuff, and then has to hyperspace all the way back to Coruscant, and during that whole thing is when Anakin's story takes place. But in terms of how the film is edited, so that you don't just get a massive chunk of Obi-Wan's story in the middle of Anakin's story, it's cutting between the two, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It really doesn't.
Unless a day on Utapau and a day on Kashyyyk is like weeks of Coruscant days.
I was about to say, maybe there's some weird thing with like the orbits and rotation or whatever.
That's getting in the weeds, though. That's getting so.
It really is, yeah. But it's just
these films don't make sense. They're not trying to be scientifically accurate, and apparently they don't care about continuity accuracy either. So,
as we've said in the previous episodes, Star Wars is about having fun in space. It's not about hard sci-fi.
Yeah, but over the one day that episode 3 takes place during, Anakin gets invited to the opera with Palpatine.
Gets invited to a very bizarre scene.
I have a lot of interesting I have a lot of things to say because it's a very interesting scene.
I really like this scene.
It's a good scene. It's kind of tonally at odds with the rest of the movie, but like
you don't say.
That's nothing new here.
Yeah.
George Lucas is a man of many influences, and he keeps trying to cram his movies with as many as he possibly can, and that definitely shows through here.
I also love there's like a little implication about how much Anakin cares about being a good boy to Palpatine, because you see him like sprinting through the opera house to get to his meeting with Palpatine. You're like, so are you late, or is this like a last minute thing? Like, why are you in such a rush to get here? And it seems like a very informal, just like, hey, Annie, you want to come to the opera or chill out?
Do you want to come to see the opera with me?
and it's not like he has like a seat prepared for Anakin or anything, because he gets everyone else to leave
he tells
the
his other
booth.
people to fuck off.
So, like, I don't know why Anakin's
It was
sprinting.
totally last minute.
Yeah, it was last minute, and maybe he is late. I don't know. Anakin seems like he craves Palpatine's validation.
I mean, he doesn't have a father figure other than Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's kind of a dick. Yeah, the opera scene has some amazing music by John Williams, and some very creepy acting by Palpatine as he starts to tell Anakin about the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
It's not a story the Jedi would tell you.
It's not the story the Jedi would tell you.
He starts telling the story about Darth Plagueis the Wise, who was a Sith Lord who tried to gain mastery over life and death. Yeah, and he could create life, and he tried to learn how to cheat death, but unfortunately...
Are midichlorians brought up in this movie? I feel like if any scene brings up midichlorians, it's probably this one.
I'm not sure they're name dropped, are they?
Yes, they are.
Oh.
In fact, they're mentioned in this very scene. He said that, Darth Plagueis tried to manipulate the midichlorians so that he could create life.
Fair enough.
As you do. And it's implied that this is how Anakin came to be, in fact, in this scene, I think.
Yes.
Very fascinating detail with the opera in the background. There's like kind of a sperm and egg kind of imagery happening. There's like a giant floating orb surrounded by different shimmering orbs, and within that sphere are a bunch of like wispy sort of tadpole sort of things.
Yeah.
It instantly brings to mind like sperm and
insemination.
I'm gonna be honest and say I've never noticed that before. You probably ruined that scene for me now.
No, I think it's like it kind of subtly lends itself to the subject matter of creating life, especially regarding what you just said about Anakin. I think the implication is very clear.
Although interestingly, there is a debate as to whether it's Plagueis who created Anakin through the Force or whether it was Sidious who created Anakin through the Force, because for some reason the theory online at the moment is that it was Palpatine, but to me this scene implies it was Plagueis. Either way,
because it's implied by Palpatine that he killed Plagueis and surmounted his title as Darth.
Yes, so then unfortunately Plagueis did not have the ability to cheat death himself. He could do it for other people, supposedly, but not himself, and so he was murdered in his sleep by his apprentice, who is Sidious. Weirdly, do you know when Plagueis actually dies in the Star Wars canon? I didn't realise this until fairly recently.
No, I don't.
He was about 100 years old or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he dies during the events of Phantom Menace.
Ah, okay.
Apparently, after Palpatine is like doing the vote of no confidence, apparently that night he murders Plagueis, according to official canon, which is weird to me because he apparently does it the night that they announce the vote of no confidence, rather than the night that he gets announced as Supreme Chancellor or whatever.
Chancellor,
yeah. So, if he hadn't won the vote, he would have killed his master.
Real stupid.
And would have, no plan. So,
interestingly, if that's true, then Sidious already had his own apprentice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the whole rule of two thing is kind of iffy.
It's always been bullshit.
And this is, I should know, it's from supplementary material. There's a book, which is canon because it's been released since the Disney reboot. So it is part of the official canon, but it is not from the actual films. So, bear that in mind as well. So, yeah, basically, though, he says that the dark side is a path to many powers, some considered to be unnatural, which is his way of saying if you go down the path of the dark side...
If you want to save Padme, you can only do it from going down the path of the dark side.
Also, interesting to note, Anakin almost immediately gives up the fact that the Jedi have put him up to spying on Palpatine, and Palpatine apparently knows it, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So then...
Anakin is such a simp.
He is. So then he ends the opera scene, and during this very, very lengthy day for Obi-Wan and Yoda, which lasts weeks for Anakin, Obi-Wan faces off against Grievous. He listens in on a conversation between them and a hologram Sith Lord, Sidious, basically sending most of the separatist party to Mustafar to wait to meet Palpatine's new apprentice. And then Grievous is dealt to deal with cleaning things up. Then Obi-Wan jumps down and...
Hello there.
Yeah, the best line of the entire Star Wars saga. And they have a fight. And it's a pretty decent fight. It's a cool set piece because it goes from like lightsaber fight to like
Giant war scene.
To giant war scene. You've got like a speeder race in the middle there.
Yeah, no, it's nice and dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's cool lizards. There's a lot of clones and droids fighting. It's it's neat. Some cool machinery like fucking Grievous's mount or whatever the fuck it is. The giant wheels.
I think it's stupid as hell, but it's pretty cool looking, I guess.
I'm also really sad that Anakin isn't here to witness what happens during this sequence because Obi-Wan loses his lightsaber and has to get given it by Commander Cody, and I just immediately think of Obi-Wan like bitching at Anakin for dropping his lightsaber in episode 2. I wish there was just like a little scene where he was like, I'm glad Anakin wasn't here to see this or something like that, but yeah.
I imagine you guys have mentioned the trend in this movie, in these 3 movies actually, of everybody loses their lightsaber several times.
Oh yeah.
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 Can't keep a hold of those fucking things.
Just make it a drinking game.
Also
make it a drinking game when Obi-Wan hangs off of a sheer cliffside.
Yes, because he does do that in this fight. So he gets knocked over a sheer cliffside, and then he force pulls Grievous's blaster and shoots him in the heart.
fucking chest.
And Grievous catches fire and explodes, and then Obi-Wan has another great line. Yeah.
A horrific death scene.
Yes.
Oh yeah, complete agony.
Grievous does not have a good time.
I just realised this is the first of 2 times that Obi-Wan does this in the space of a couple of days for him. He is on like a psychopathic murder spree of just setting people on fire. He is not a merciful man in this film.
You truly do love to see it.
Obi-Wan doesn't fuck around.
And then, yeah, he collects his lightsaber. Oh, that's skipping quite far ahead, actually.
Cody gives it back to him.
Yeah, but that's
we'll get to that,
quite a bit later. I'm just trying to, like, rearrange all of the... Because there's so many, like, just little scenes of just, like...
Yeah, it jumps around a lot.
Just, like, checking in with different characters. Like, Yoda's doing some shit, Chewbacca's
doing all the shit. Doing all the shit the fucking Kashyyyk scene is going on, and there's a bunch of...
Not a lot of narrative consequence happening.
No.
Exactly, yeah. It's literally just have Yoda not be on Coruscant, and also to set up a little bit of when Order 66 happens. So, going back to the main plot, which is on Coruscant, Anakin then goes to visit Palpatine in his chambers.
His Senate office, yeah.
Not his chambers, that sounds a little bit weird.
I mean, the whole relationship is kind of weird, so I find that appropriate.
Now, here's one of the things I love about this scene. If you pay attention to the background, there are lots of cool art direction stuff with props and set dressing, detailing like battles from old. There's like the battle between the Jedi and the Sith during the Great Sith Wars and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a giant bas-relief behind Anakin and Palpatine at one point, which is apparently of the Great Hyperspace War.
Yeah, and you've got like these statues of hooded figures who look very evil, and you think, how long have these been in Palpatine's office and no one's questioned why he has like the history of the Jedi versus the Sith?
He knew Anakin was coming over today, so he just like, he went to his like office decorators, he was like,
bring me all the Sith things.
I need you guys to decorate my office and make it look as evil as possible to subliminally the message, Anakin. Yeah, that'll run you a couple thousand credits, Palpies. Is that okay?
But, yeah, so... I don't even remember how Palpatine really obviously reveals that he is Sidious without saying it. I don't remember, like, the actual, like...
He pretty much just comes right out and says it.
Yeah, he's very honest.
You could save Padme if you join me.
What is even the context to this scene? Like, why does Anakin go to Palpatine's office again?
I think Palpatine just kind of calls him in and he's like, hey, I know your wife's having some trouble, or you're really worried about her. Like,
yeah, Anakin just kind of shows up, Phil. There's not a lot of context.
Let me set your mind at ease with the dark side.
Yeah, and then...
Not like there's another inciting incident with the Jedi putting Anakin up to questioning him about anything.
No, maybe that was cut or something, yeah. But Palpatine reveals himself to be Sidious without saying it, So Anakin's not 100% sure, but he's like 95% sure. So he draws his lightsaber on Palpatine, and then Palpatine's like, hey, do what you gotta do, but you're never gonna save the woman you love if you kill me. And he goes, I'm gonna go tell on Master Windu on you. And
I'm gonna go grab Samuel.
So he goes and tells Master Windu, and Master Windu's like, a Sith Lord? And that's basically the entirety of that connection scene is just him, like, flabbergasted at this reveal that's totally obvious to anyone paying attention.
To his credit, Mace is like sort of unflappable about it. He just sort of processes it. And he's like, okay, I guess we gotta go kill Palpatine, man.
Yeah, guess we gotta kill him.
He goes to a Republic transport, which is apparently waiting right there. And there's a few Jedi Masters apparently still waiting right there.
To be fair, they are in like the hangar of the Jedi Temple, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but it seems like they were either about to do something and then
They were going out for pizza.
Yeah. They were heading out to Jetsto's.
Hey guys, you're never gonna believe this. Do you know where Obi-Wan used to intern? Oh, you're gonna have a fucking riot. Yeah, and they tell Anakin. So he deputizes the other Jedi there, but tells Anakin to go and wait in the council chambers for them, because Anakin is not a master. So
yeah. To his credit, Mace is like, I can't, you're basically Palpy's right-hand man. I can't trust you with this, so, like, we're gonna go...
And it's completely reasonable, and I don't even remember Anakin bitching about it that much.
Yeah, he seemed kind of okay with it.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, no. Until he starts having, like, Vietnam flashbacks about Padme dying, and then he goes and he fucking runs off.
So...
Ape mode, and heads out.
So the Jedi go and confront Palpatine, and Palpatine's like... you've come to arrest me then, blah, 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 blah. I am the Senate.
I am the Senate.
And then Mace Windu's like, not yet. And then Palpatine goes, then it's treason then. And he draws his lightsaber and screams as he does a spinny spin over his desk.
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
He does the famous sheep spin.
Mm-hmm.
We love the sheep spin. Kit Fisto tragically dies in the scene.
Kit Fisto goes down like a fucking bitch in this scene, and it annoys me so much.
Palpatine vaporizes two Jedi Masters almost immediately, and then he just wastes Kit Fisto in a second.
Like, again, Clone Wars supplementary material, but he faces off against Grievous, and it's a fucking awesome battle, and you see how powerful Kit Fisto is. He literally gets like one slash to the belly and goes, ah, and falls over.
Yeah, there's really no explanation for this. I mean, I guess Lucas always said that Palpatine is just really... the dark side is so powerful that Jedi can't think straight around him, so they just become bitches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it does show how powerful he is, which is what the scene is supposed to do. So then Mace Windu and him start having a vicious duel. Meanwhile, Anakin is alone in the council chambers, and again, there is a fantastic scene. Or at least it used to be a fantastic scene. Because I rewatched this film before Christmas, and I don't remember a certain element of this scene being in the film, and I think I messaged you at the time, Ben, and said, this is one of those moments when you're rewatching the Star Wars films and you think that you're going insane because you don't realise that you're watching yet another re-released version. Yeah. So this is how I remember the original scene, is Anakin sat in the council chambers and this hypnotic, somber John Williams score of just like a woman kind of singing and a kind of bassy string instrument slowly playing in the background. And then it cuts to Padme, and she's in the apartment, and she starts looking out of the window, and the sun is setting. Then Anakin stands up, and he looks out of the window, and he's also looking at the sun setting over Coruscant, and it starts slowly cutting between them, kind of bringing it in closer to them, and you see the conflict within him, and the connection between them. And then he shows up at Palpatine's office. But in the version that I watched before Christmas, which I'm guessing is the version you watched, Ryan, do you know what extra is added into that scene?
I gotta admit I forget, so go ahead.
It has a little bit of Palpatine going, if you want to save the one you love. And I was like, this is not necessary. And I swear this was not in the original cut, but I can't find any verification of that. I don't own the DVD anymore. But
Classic audience is stupid sort of
Yeah.
bullshit.
and the reason why it's one of my favorite scenes originally is because it doesn't, and it's like one of the most just like well shot with music and cinematography scenes that tells you everything without any dialogue, and then they ruin it by just reusing the exact dialogue that Palpatine said about 10 minutes ago in the film. Like, it's not like half an hour ago or anything.
You're completely spot on about the music, by the way, and I just wanted to add that, like, it is the most unified narrative function of the movies.
Yes.
The music is always the most consistent in delivering the kind of emotional response that's desired out of the audience.
Yeah, John Williams never slacks off. Anakin shows up at Palpatine's office, and around about this point, Mace Windu and Palpatine shatter a window, and then Palpatine gets knocked to the floor, and then he starts force lightning Mace Windu, but Mace Windu blocks it, and yeah, he redirects it at Palpatine. So then Palpatine stops as Anakin walks in, and he's like, "Anakin, you have to save me. He's going to kill me."
I'm too weak.
And Mace Windu's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill him." And Anakin's like, "No,
Definitely
it's not the
gonna kill
Jedi way. We need to arrest him." And he's like, "He's too dangerous and powerful to be arrested. I'm gonna kill him." And Anakin's like,
Anakin
"It's
says,
not the
"I
Jedi
need
way."
him.
Yeah, I need him. And then Palpatine starts... No, he doesn't. Sorry. Mace Windu then goes to do his final swing. At that point, Anakin comes and chops off his hand, and then Palpatine unlimited powers him and shoots him out of a window.
There's a cool part where they do that thing where from Return of the Jedi where like Vader's skull kind of shows for a second. That happens to Mace as he's getting zapped.
Mm-hmm.
Nifty callback.
Yeah. But Anakin then collapses in absolute grief and says, "What have I done?" And Palpatine's just like, "Well, fuck this shit. He's turned to the dark side now and going full Sidious." And he
goes from "What have I done?" to "Yes, master, I will slaughter all the younglings" in the space of a minute.
Yeah, literally.
This is the movie's greatest sin.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like, I feel like up to this point, everything that Anakin has done, you can understand and it makes sense. But the transition from this to, yes, I'm gonna do everything, is like...
Is the dark side just like a switch being thrown in your head? Like, as soon as you've opened yourself up to it, are you just be like, hell yeah, I'll kill all these kids, I don't give a fuck, pal, give me that shit?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the opposite of, like, turning back to the light side apparently takes forever, because I don't feel the same. Like, I feel like someone could try and make the argument that Darth Vader turning to the light side and becoming Anakin in Return of the Jedi is the same. Not at all, in my opinion. Like,
No, not at all.
But, anyways, he does go straight to, yes, my master, and he rises as Lord Vader. And the following scene is cool, it's just that, again, it's too quick.
It's very abrupt.
There should be like another half hour almost of Anakin's story between that point and this point to get there.
You know what would have helped? If Padme was actually sick, or like had a disease, or she was suffering complications from pregnancy or something like that.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been bad.
All Anakin has is like prophecy, a feeling, a bad dream.
But I guess he had the same thing about his mother, and his mother did die, so that's kind of, I guess, the element of it. But so he then marches on the Jedi Temple with a bunch of clones and murders the entirety of the Jedi Order, pretty much. There's a couple who survive. George Lucas's son almost survives, but doesn't quite.
Oh, is that his son on the
Saving Bail Organa, yeah.
Yeah.
Not that he needed saving, the clones just let him go.
Yeah, for sure. Like, so Bail Organa shows up because they see the Jedi Temple on fire and whatever, and some clones are like, "You should leave now," and he's like, "Okay, I'm leaving." And then George Lucas's son does a front flip over the clones and chops like one of their heads off, and then gets gunned down. And Bail's like, "Okay, I'm leaving now," and he flies off.
Time to fucking leave.
Oh, and Anakin, he meets the younglings.
Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we gonna do? Yeah, as I say, the scene.
Kids are fucking dead.
The scene is cool, despite it being memed the fuck out of. It's just it comes too quickly after his accepting the dark side to him murdering children is just like, yeah, you don't get any sense that he has got any qualms with what he's doing.
The most you can sense from his qualms, if you can call them that, is him looking slightly uncomfortable about it as he ignites his lightsaber.
He just affects this whole grim demeanor, this grim stoic demeanor.
Yeah. So, and then while this is going on, Palpatine orders Order 66, which is the order to murder all of the Jedi. So all of the clones have, again, this is explained in the Clone Wars TV show, they have control chips. I don't think that really needed an explanation, but it is explained. So it's not just them being loyal to Palpatine, it is straight up, they have control chips in their heads. And we then get, again, quite a good montage of various Jedi being gunned down or the ships blown up. But yeah, we see a bunch of Jedi die. We also see some clone troopers about to attack Yoda, and he just instantly jumps up in the air and chops both of their heads off. And the Wookiees are just like, okay then.
The Wookiees are like, you seem okay, even though you just murdered me too.
Yeah, from their context, they're just like two clone troopers walk towards the commander with their guns in their hands, like you would probably do when you're in a war zone, and he just murdered them for no reason.
He just knows. He's Yoda. Okay,
Yeah.
like, that said, he's Yoda, but Episode 2 also established him as, like, having very sporadic, like, Force vision or, like, Force insight. And he's like, power of the dark side has fallen over us. I can't see shit. Well, shit, I cannot see.
What if Order 66 didn't actually happen and Yoda's just a senile old green guy who just murdered clones, and then he's like, when he catches up with Obi-Wan, he's like, the clones tried to murder us, yes?
Obi-Wan's just like, yes, Master. Absolutely.
And then Cody turns on Obi-Wan, and his clones turn on Obi-Wan. So as Obi-Wan's like riding up on his like creature thing up a cliff, they just like shoot an AA gun at him.
Shoot him with artillery, yeah.
And he like falls down from the cliff, and they're like, yeah, he definitely died. No one could survive a fall like that.
We do that gecko dirty.
Yeah, that gecko was a good boy.
I'm sorry, no one could survive a fall like that. Have they been paying attention to like literally any of the Star Wars Jedi?
Yeah, but clones are like crowing to themselves. I mean, nobody, he's totally dead.
Like, again, we talked last episode about how the Jedi seem to be so prolific that no one seems to give a shit about Obi-Wan and Anakin's shenanigans when they're chasing Zam Wesell. In that, both of them fall a distance that would kill a man. Surely the whole galaxy knows that heights are not a problem for Jedi.
They both fall roughly 1,000 stories.
Yeah, it's not good.
But they're like, nah, no one could survive a fall
Assuredly
like that.
dead.
And no, he's just sitting in a pool of water with the breathing thing from episode 1.
We've been fighting with these guys for roughly 5 years. I've seen a lot of Jedis fall. They never survive.
They have a whip bone, all of them.
Yeah. So Obi-Wan just like gets out of the water when the clones have left and is like, well, that was fucking weird. Let me head on back to Coruscant then, I suppose. And
I gotta assume that Obi-Wan has done this shit before. Like, he keeps bamboozling his clones.
He's a practical jokester, you know?
Yeah.
We're used to it.
But Obi-Wan does make his way back to Coruscant, but on the way there, he gets like a communication from Bail Organa, and he and Yoda meet up with Bail Organa, and he kind of Bail's like, yeah, so the Jedi Temple's on fire, and a bunch of like George Lucas's son got chopped down, and Yoda's like, yeah, I murdered a bunch of clones for no reason, and Obi-Wan's like, they apparently have also forgotten all of their experiences from the war. I think they might be senile. So they go back to Coruscant, but discreetly. And
The blockade run, don't they?
Yep.
yes, they should do the Tantive 4, I want to say.
Tantive 4.
The only Star Wars looking set
Star
in
Wars
the
ship.
movie.
Yes. And actually, no, you see a brief shot of Dagobah. That looks pretty original trilogy, and Tatooine looks pretty original trilogy. It's almost like the only things that look like the original trilogy are the stuff from the original trilogy. But yeah, so they head back to Coruscant, and there's an extended sequence that got deleted, thank God. But Obi-Wan and Yoda infiltrate the Jedi Temple, while Bail Organa goes with Padme to a Senate meeting. Side note, we forgot to mention, Palpatine then sent Anakin to Mustafar.
Yes, to kill all the Separatists.
Yes, so the war is over and all of the Separatists are dead now.
Well, they will be soon.
Yeah. So while Obi-Wan and Yoda go to the Jedi Temple and they kill a couple of clones on the way there, they find a massacre. Bail and Padme go to the Senate.
I just mentioned the whole. They're supposed to be doing this secretly. They're basically fighting a clone squad outside in broad daylight.
Dressed
It's
as
not very
Jedi
secret.
with lightsabers. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
But
makes me think.
that they maybe aren't the best at infiltration.
No.
Do you remember the time that they did the whole surgery thing to Obi-Wan to make him look like a completely different human being?
Yes.
Why didn't they do that?
Why didn't they do that again? Those are good episodes.
They are, yes. So Palpatine then just announces that he's now extended his emergency power that he was granted forever, and he is now the Emperor. And apparently the whole Senate is just like, fuck yeah!
Friendship and
Whoa!
democracy ended. Fascism is my best friend now.
And I would say that was unrealistic, but then again, your country. So
Yep.
Padme has that famous line, so this is how democracy dies in a storm and thunderous applause.
mhm.
Yep.
And
Pretty good line.
yeah, it is. And it's applicable to today's politics in both of our countries. So
Unfortunate.
yeah. And then Obi-Wan and Yoda see some, or they basically find that everyone's dead. Obi-Wan sends out a message to any other Jedi, basically saying, "Don't go to the Jedi Temple. It's a trap." Because there was a return home signal sent out. He's like, "Ignore this. All the Jedi are dead. We have to go into exile. Flee."
Some of you are pretty cool. They're coming to the Jedi Temple tomorrow.
Yeah. And then he says, "I need to know who's done this." And Yoda's like, "No, don't." But Obi-Wan does it anyways, and he discovers Anakin cutting down the younglings.
Look into the archives, you must. Only pain you will find.
Mm-hmm. And it's at this point that, again, a logical decision from audience satisfaction, but just a dick move from Yoda, is, "Alright, well, you go and deal with Anakin, your apprentice, / your brother, / your son, who you've known since he was 9 years old. Murder him, you must. I'll go murder Sidious." I'm just saying, I maybe would have tackled Sidious together, both of them, and then
just
maybe gone
fucking
after
divide
Anakin as
cargo.
well. But
Anakin ain't going anywhere.
I can kind of see the rationale, though, because the way the Sith work, I mean, if one of them dies, the other quickly tries to take their place, and Anakin might have reasonably taken over for Sidious.
But still, 2 Jedi Masters is a better bet against a Sith Lord than 1. I mean, if you look at the logic, again, of this franchise, Obi-Wan is actually the only person, actually no, Anakin now as well, are the only 2 people to have ever defeated Sith Lords. In the living history of the Star Wars galaxy, because the Sith had been gone for hundreds of years before Maul showed up. Obi-Wan defeated Maul, Anakin defeated Dooku in this film, so they're the only 2. Yoda actually has no street cred at this point to defeat a Sith Lord. So, but yeah, so Obi-Wan then goes to talk to Padme because he totally knows about their relationship and he's just kind of allowed it to exist this whole time. And he kind of reveals that he knows that Anakin's the father, and asks Padme to tell him where Anakin went. She doesn't know, or she says she doesn't know, she does know. And then Obi-Wan just sneaks on board her ship and she totally just goes straight to Anakin. Also, weirdly, she takes C-3PO with her, so that C-3PO can be with Obi-Wan and R2-D2 and then get given to Bail Organa, conveniently.
We love C-3PO.
There's literally no
Totally
reason for her
underutilized
to
in
bring
this movie.
C-3PO in the entire prequel trilogy. And the entire sequel trilogy.
I think any utilization of Freeman in these films at all is overutilizing him. He brings nothing.
And then Yoda goes to deal with Palpatine, and he just like force pushes Palpatine at one point over, and he just like falls over his desk chair. It is like the most slapstick. Like, this is the evil Dark Lord of the Sith. It's just, oh, I fell over. It's like, picture an old man getting imagine an old man getting his walking stick kicked out from under him. That's basically the vibe that Palpatine gives off at that point. And then they have a fight, and while that's going on, because they cut between the two, Padme arrives at Mustafar. She confronts Anakin. Obi-Wan's told her that he killed younglings or whatever, and she like pleads with Anakin to tell her that it's not true, that Obi-Wan was lying, and he's just like, "Nah, I did it for you, babe.
I did it for you, baby."
Yeah.
And she has that cringe-inducing line, "You're breaking my heart."
Yeah, I don't know who you are anymore, what you've done, what you plan to do. Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
I don't know you anymore.
And at this point, Anakin notices Obi-Wan stood on the ramp.
Standing in the silhouetted on the ramp, standing like a total fucking Chad.
Mm-hmm. And so he starts choking Padme. And what is Obi-Wan's reaction to this?
What does he say to her?
Liar.
Yeah. And then, so while Padme is being choked, Obi-Wan just stands there and then goes, "Let her go, Anakin." You know, this guy who you've just watched a bunch of, like, CCTV murdering children is strangling his wife / mother of his children, and you just stand there and go, "Let her go." You don't maybe think, let me use some force on him or something, draw my lightsaber, become an active threat. No, let her go.
Well, Obi-Wan doesn't like to get involved in real love life, and, their predilection towards BDSM is quite well documented.
Proceed, Anakin.
I'm not going to king shame you, my youngest.
But he does let her go, and then they start having a chit chat, and Obi-Wan checks her pulse. She's still alive. So then he's like, "Oh, she's still alive, so I can throw down with this bitch boy now. Been waiting my whole life for this. Qui-Gon tried to replace me with this bitch. I'm gonna murder his ass. I'm gonna set him on fire just like I did to Grievous."
Yeah, Obi-Wan's pissed. He's been grooming Anakin.
Don't use that word.
He's been grooming Anakin in the Jedi's pedophile program for the past, 11 odd years. And, this lady got between them, and he wants to throw down now. He's out for revenge.
Anakin starts talking about him having brought peace and prosperity to his new empire. Obi-Wan's response is, "Your new empire?" And Anakin goes, "If you're not with me, then you're against me." To which Obi-Wan's response, and the way that this line is delivered is as if it's an old Jedi adage, like it's a saying that Jedi know about the Sith. Is
only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Now, what's the problem with that line, people?
That is an absolute statement.
These films are great.
There's also like these movies are a product of their time a little bit. And the whole "you're either with me or against me" is a very obvious Bush era dog whistle.
Oh yeah, completely. Just straight it now, totally.
And
not a bad thing.
No, I mean,
unsubtle.
And an absolute, which is something that only the Sith deal in. So Obi-Wan then draws his lightsaber and says, "I'll do what I must." And Anakin says, "You will try," and does about 100 backflips straight into the lava. That's how the fight goes, isn't it?
It is an innovating, absolutely interminable, I would say 20-minute long.
I think it's
a very fucking long fight.
I think it's about 12 minutes, including the Yoda stuff. but it does feel long. It's cool and it's balletic, and we kind of talked about and we talked about how great the Phantom Menace fight between Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon was. This to me feels like it's on a similar caliber, except for one key problem.
What's that?
It cutting back to Sidious and Yoda.
Yes. Yep.
Because here's the thing.
But you also have that problem with the Duel of Fates, though.
Yes, but to a lesser extent, because when the dramatic element of that fight gets going, when Qui-Gon is dead, to my memory, it doesn't cut away from Obi-Wan versus Maul. I might be wrong.
You are, I'm afraid. Yeah, it cuts back a few times to what's going on with the palace and the space battle.
I guess I have rose-tinted glasses then. But the other thing I dislike about the Palpatine versus Yoda fight is it's necessary from a story point of, if it's not there, you would say, well, what did the Jedi do to try and stop Sidious? They only went after Vader. From a structure point of view, it has to be at this point of the film. It would feel awkward to have the entirety of Yoda versus Palpatine and then have the entirety of Anakin versus Obi-Wan. I feel like that would in a way make it more breathless, because it's one lengthy fight scene followed immediately by another lengthy fight scene. So cutting between them, it makes sense from like a pacing perspective. My problem with it is that Palpatine and Yoda hurling Senate discs at each other is slapstick comedy.
It's the best shit.
Meanwhile, Anakin versus Obi-Wan is supposed to be this passionate fight between these two brothers who both love each other but hate each other at this moment, and it's supposed to be, this epic and tragic I'm losing the word at the end of that sentence. Event. Spectacle, that was the word I was looking for.
If you cut the length of both scenes by half, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
As it stands, though, you feel the length of it.
I feel like when you I watched this film on my 7th birthday. We went to the cinema for my 7th birthday to go see it, because that's how young I am, I know. When I was 7, this fight scene was fucking amazing. When I watched this last year, yeah, I agree with you. You could feel the length of it, and so I think ultimately, because it's a children's film more than it's an adult's film, it's doing what it's trying to do. But from an adult perspective, yeah, it needs to be trimmed a little bit. But
a lot of really stupid performative elements. Like at one point, Obi and Anakin just kind of wave their blades.
Yes, they do.
Ineffectually at each other, just
There's just a moment of 10 seconds
just
of them just flourishing very quickly at each other. There's also there's some really cool stuff in there as well. There's a great moment in the fight when they're fighting in the boardroom where Anakin murdered the Separatists, and I can't remember how it happens, but they end up disarming each other and having a brief fist fight bit, and then Anakin pulls Obi-Wan's lightsaber to him, and Obi-Wan pulls Anakin's lightsaber to him. As Obi-Wan just manages to block Anakin's attack. Here's the question, though. You never see them swap lightsabers again, but they get their own lightsabers back, and I don't understand how.
They just handed them back to each other like gentlemen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Duelists.
There's also the set piece of them fighting on Mustafar, which is this lava planet, and as they're fighting, they're progressively destroying the mining facility there. So the safeguards are breaking, the shields are breaking, it's falling apart around them. Lava is being spat up. There's these massive eruptions. It is awesome, and there's a reason why. To me, the shot when they both grab each other's wrists as the lava erupts behind them is one of the most iconic shots of Star Wars. So there's some really good stuff in here, but yeah, it's long.
Yeah, it's a little too long.
They end up on this mining pillar or something like that, which is drifting along the lava river.
Going towards a waterfall or lava fall, yeah.
And they're still ineffectually waving their lightsabers at each other, clashing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the one thing I wish this fight had more of, which the fight between Obi-Wan and Maul does have, is the fight between Obi-Wan and Maul is balletic and it has flourishes and whatever, but it does also feel like they're going for each other. not all the time. There are some really good little fight moments in this big fight, but a lot of the time it feels like their attacks are more for show than they are to actually be effective. While I feel like there's very little of that in the Obi-Wan versus Maul fight, but that still has lots of flourishes in it, if you know what I mean.
It's a Dragon Ball Z fight.
Yeah.
It's like an anime fight. They spend a lot of time talking to each other. Yeah.
But Anakin, the Emperor is evil, not from my perspective.
From my perspective, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah, they should have a political debate. Yeah. While this is going on, Yoda loses to Sidious and just flees, and he gets picked up by Bail Organa.
He was like a little bitch.
He leaves his lightsaber behind. He does. He ends up in his pajamas, which is why he looks less like a Jedi when you see him in Empire.
He never got new pajamas.
And
It's adorable, to be honest.
not as adorable as another member of his species, though. And yeah, so he flees, and Sidious is like, shit, I'm going to spend another 19 years before I disband the Senate. I'm going to have to get people to repair this place. And then Anakin and Obi-Wan end up fighting on these two tiny platforms on this lava river, and Obi-Wan then jumps to the land.
It's a droid.
One of them is a droid, yeah. And Obi-Wan then jumps over to the land on a little bit of a small incline, and he goes, "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." Do you guys remember how Obi-Wan defeated Maul, real quick?
On a level playing field by leaping over him.
Correct. And what does Anakin try and do during this fight?
Tries to do the same fucking thing.
And I guess the argument can be made that because Obi-Wan did that move on Maul, he knows how to prepare it. But yeah.
See, this is fucking Obi-Wan is like the most, he's a very competent duelist.
Also, to be fair,
this was kind of calculated on Obi-Wan's part. Like, he goaded him into doing.
He goaded him into doing it because he knew exactly how to counter it.
Yes, and also he knows how he knows that goading Anakin will 100% work because he knows Anakin. This is one of the things, again, that kind of goes unwritten about this scene, is that one of the things, like, underlying it, why it's such a dramatic fight scene, again, it's a bit lengthy, but these two,
know each other's fighting
they
style.
know each other's fighting styles. Anakin literally learned from Obi-Wan, but does have his own fighting style. So, yeah, it's like the ultimate fight in that sort of sense. Also, again, talking about supplementary material, when Obi-Wan faces off against Maul in Rebels, he is clearly calculated because the animations in that fight scene are actually... Maul tries to do the same killing blow on Obi-Wan that he used on Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan perfectly,
perfectly counters it.
Yeah, so it totally makes... It is the best... In my opinion, it's the best fight scene in the entirety of Star Wars, but...
Yes, 2 seconds.
Yeah, but so with that in mind, I guess the argument can be made that Obi-Wan is kind of like the Batman of Star Wars. Like, he knows how to counter any of his enemies and goes in like with a plan in mind, not just I'm going to wave my light sword at them. But yeah, so he says it's over. I've got the high ground. Anakin says you underestimate my power. Tries to flip over Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan chops off both his legs and his other arm. He leaves his cybernetic arm. He just cuts off his human arm.
Obi-Wan is all about that poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the royal poet.
And
then he harangues Anakin from up high, as Anakin
from his moral high ground.
And his literal high ground.
Flounders and burns to death.
Yes,
screaming and cursing at him.
As Anakin tries to crawl up the hill, which is made of little pebbles, the hill starts to give way underneath him, and he falls further and further towards the lava river, and then catches on fire, and just burns to death essentially in front of Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan's just like, "You were the chosen one.
I loved you."
Which, again, the performance-wise, Ewan McGregor fucking nails that scene. The music is great. It's not a bad scene by any means. It's just also really cruel of Obi-Wan to just leave Anakin like that.
If you loved this guy, then you'd give him a clean death.
But I also think that's possibly the point, is that Obi-Wan is so destroyed by this that he can't. He just walks away, which is... It then, I think, adds a really interesting layer of depth to Obi-Wan, which is the fact that that's probably his
biggest failure, and also it's his biggest regret, because obviously Anakin survives and goes on to reign terror on the galaxy because Obi-Wan didn't have the courage to finish it. Like, think about if Obi-Wan executed Anakin there, the entirety of the original trilogy would be completely different. So, yeah, but Obi-Wan takes up Anakin's lightsaber. He's like, I'm going to give this to a boy in 19 years' time. And he leaves. And I think that is, again, like, when we talk about George Lucas's writing style and we criticize his writing, George Lucas has always been great at ideas and concepts. And I think that this is probably the ending he had in mind for it. Not necessarily since the beginning of the prequel trilogy, but definitely for years leading up to this. This, I think, was planned as how this would go down, in terms of, like, Obi-Wan being the one to maim Anakin and cause him to become, like, the cybernetic Darth Vader, but couldn't kill him. And I think that's a really well executed end to that fight, and for the most part this film. So,
and then it goes on for another 20 minutes.
And then it goes on for another 20 minutes, yeah. It has a bit of Return of the King anitis going on. Yeah. I mean, it's somewhat needed. Some of it is, some of it isn't. So Obi-Wan then returns to where he left Padme and C-3PO and R2-D2. And he flies to meet up with Bail Organa, who has Yoda. Padme is dying of a broken heart.
She's dying of a broken heart, which is it's a medical condition in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. She's so sad she can't live anymore.
Yep, just gotta die. Gotta die right now.
Which makes her a really shitty mother.
Really
Anakin, you've been nasty to me. Goodbye, honey.
Bye-bye. You're very nasty to me, honey. Bye-bye. Get out of here.
Best of luck, kids.
Yeah. She can't live for her children. She can only live for her horrible, arrogant, narcissistic husband.
So, she lives long enough to name the children Luke and Leia. I'm actually really, really happy that there is no story given as to why they're called Luke and Leia. They're just called Luke and Leia. Thank fuck.
She gives birth to her already 5-month-old babies.
Yes, she does.
Large babies.
That's just all the midichlorians, and it beefs them up a bit. And then...
Delivered by upsettingly photorealistic CGI robots.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
They have mouths.
Do they?
Yeah, they have mouths.
I don't like that. I forgot
No,
that.
it's horrible. It's horrible.
I don't have any memory of that, which I assume means that I've just, like, purged it from my memory.
Yeah, they have these little CGI mechanical mouths, and it's really upsetting.
And so then she dies, and there's then kind of like a hodgepodge of, like, epilogue scenes. So they decide what they're going to do with the babies. Obi-Wan is going to take Luke to his uncle and aunt on Tatooine to hide them, because, you know, to be fair, I guess he doesn't know that Anakin survived at this point, but there's no way that anyone would ever possibly look for Anakin's children with Anakin's blood relations, but, you know, and he vows to watch over Luke as Luke is growing up. Meanwhile, Bail Organa's like, well, me and my wife have always wanted a daughter, so we'll just adopt the other one.
We're gonna take her into the lap of luxury and let this other kid waste away on a fucking desert planet where
Yes.
survival is not guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Although Tatooine ended up getting the better deal because through Bail Organa's decision, he sealed Alderaan's fate.
That's true.
Is that the explicit reason? I mean, yeah, I guess so.
I mean, the only reason they destroy Alderaan in A New Hope is to, you know, leverage Leia. And, you know, her affection for her home planet.
Mm-hmm. True.
True, but then I suppose if they hadn't adopted Leia, someone else would be doing the mission, and it'd probably also be from Alderaan, so...
Yeah.
We'll never know until they do a What If comic. Marvel, you'll do it, I know you will.
Which, as soon as a Disney executive listens to this, they'll get right on.
Then we get the scene of Luke, you know, Obi-Wan delivering Luke to,
Well, but before that, there is a little... interesting little hint as well. Yoda basically, before he sends them on their way, he says that I must go into exile as well. He's going to go to Dagobah, but before he says, "Now, Obi-Wan, I know you are Jedi Master who sits on Jedi Council, but I have a piece of homework for you."
Yes, that's right. More training for you, I have.
Training for you?
Basically,
Never finished, asshole.
it's hinted at that Qui-Gon, it's not known how Qui-Gon worked out how to do this, but Qui-Gon supposedly has worked out how to make himself appear as a Force ghost. And
See ghosts, I do.
and-
Crazy I am.
I murdered 2 innocent soldiers because of him. Qui-Gon just whispered in his ear, was like, "Murder them. Do it."
Kill them all.
But Yoda tells Obi-Wan to learn how to turn himself into a Force ghost for no reason whatsoever.
Literally just to set up him coming back in Empire.
Yeah, which
completely completely unneeded.
yeah, completely unneeded, and also it then makes Obi-Wan kind of a massive dick because when Rey's going through all of her shit in the sequel trilogy, he's like, "Nah, I'm good." Like, fair enough,
I'm
Luke didn't
done
learn how to
fucking.
do it, but Luke did learn how to do it.
Yeah,
but,
he comes back as a ghost.
But oh my god. Anyways,
So then, Yoda fucks off to Dagobah.
yes.
Obi-Wan fucks off to Tatooine.
And Bale fucks off to Alderaan, so we get one shot of Alderaan before it gets blown up in A New Hope.
Yeah, it's
It's pretty, yeah.
nice buildings.
Love that shit.
Like an elven city from Lord of the Rings.
Yes, it actually, yeah, it looks a lot like kind of sci-fi meets Lothlorien or River. I was about to call it Riverdale.
Oh God. Ugh. Fuck.
I now want a
Chuck
Lord of the
Anderson,
Rings cut with Riverdale replaced in Riverdale. Anyways, and then again, it is the very last scene of the movie, and this movie is too long, and it's like a montage scene with nice music in the background. It's going into the A New Hope theme, but it is a really weird scene because Obi-Wan shows up on the back of some like lizard creature thing.
A dewback.
Is it a dewback?
Probably.
I don't think it is a dewback.
Real quick, there's a short scene of Padme's funeral.
Oh yes, there is, and she has a little
yeah.
locket from,
And Boss Nass again.
Boss Nass and Jar Jar looking very solemn.
and also, she has the locket that Anakin made her when he was 9 years old. But yeah, so the final scene of the movie, so Obi-Wan shows up and he's got a baby Luke in his arms, in these kind of wrapped cloth, and he approaches Uncle Owen, who's standing there watching the twin suns set, as you do when you live on Tatooine, and wordlessly he just gives him this baby and walks off, and then Uncle Owen's like, "Oh, okay," and then starts looking at the sunset again, and then Aunt Beru comes out and is like, "Oh, hey, you got a baby?" And he's like, "Yeah, I do." And she's like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
I got a
okay,"
baby.
and then she looks at the twin sun setting as well, completely
It's like,
wordlessly.
okay, fine, that's fine.
Prequel movies end on 2 B-list actors staring up. Oh boy.
That was
Good
episode
thing there was
3.
no terrorism. Yep. Episode 3.
It's the best of the prequels.
Which isn't
Despite,
saying much.
despite also being bad.
I feel like this film kind of had an impossible task, which is why I'm a little bit more forgiving of it as well, is that there is so much stuff that they had to cover, and it makes you wonder why they tried to cover it all in one film. And like, there are people who hate on the Disney trilogy for feeling disjointed and unplanned, and then those same people will praise the prequel trilogy. To me, the prequel trilogy feels equally as unplanned, just slightly more jointed because it was all done by George Lucas. But
Yeah.
Definitely feel more idiosyncratic and less cynical
yeah,
Yes.
than the sequel trilogy.
yeah.
There's definitely like a point and like an overall narrative that he had a plan for.
And there's a clear direction through all 3 of them, but it's just, as I say, like,
Direction's not very good.
and also you just think to yourself, like, why is the entirety of episode 1 not moving the plot forward at all? Like, what does episode 1 actually add to the plot of Star Wars?
Well, that's why in this what's it called, Ryan? The
The machete order.
yeah. So do you know what that is?
Nope.
Okay, so Ryan, how about you explain?
So, the machete order is a recommended way to view all of the prequel and the original films. You start with A New Hope, then you go to Empire, then you jump back to Attack of the Clones. Phantom Menace is optional. Then Revenge of the Sith. Then you jump all the way back towards Return of the Jedi.
Okay, I can see that.
Recommended because this guy really researched the films and kind of looked at them from a narrative perspective, and all the twists are preserved, and it even adds a few new ones. You learn that Luke has a sister in Revenge of the Sith. If you view it this way, you don't learn about that just kind of offhandedly in Return of the Jedi. It kind of becomes like a new twist,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of it preserves that twist from Empire Strikes Back, because you're not supposed to know
Yeah.
that Darth Vader is Luke's father. You learn about it in Empire, then you jump back to see how he ended up this way.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Important thing about that machete order, though, Phantom Menace optional.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point, is that it literally adds nothing to the actual plot. It's backstory. That's all it is. Like, it could be a backstory novel, and I wouldn't bat an
It's
eye.
like it's
but,
lore.
yeah, exactly. What it establishes is that Anakin is incredibly powerful in the Force, because at 9 years old, he blows up the entire Trade Federation control ship.
Yep.
That's basically it.
It establishes Padme, I guess.
Yeah, it has some important elements, but you could rework those into episode 2 pretty easily. Like, you could have Anakin meet Padme in episode 2 and fall madly in love with her if episode 2 was actually episode 1 in some way, shape, or form.
This would have had to have been a very different film, but I think it could.
Well, yeah, the entire trilogy I think would have to be completely different, but it seems so strange to me that episode 1 to me feels like... In a weird way, episode 1 feels a lot like The Force Awakens in terms of it's playing it very safe and just having a little bit of a fun adventure in the Star Wars universe that doesn't have a lot of weight. But actually, if you're locking yourself in to do a trilogy of stories, then the first one is just as important as the second and third one. And just like The Force Awakens, we'll get there, it doesn't really do that much storytelling, although Force Awakens is definitely better than Phantom Menace, and it is more important to its trilogy than the Phantom Menace is, but still, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
That's the prequel trilogy.
that's the prequel trilogy. What are we doing next? Are we doing episode 4 next, or are we doing Solo next?
If we're going chronological, I guess Solo.
Yeah, I'm up for that, because it makes more sense in the sense that if we weren't doing it chronological, we should have started with episode 4.
Oh
But-
god, then we'd have to do Rogue One after that.
That's fine. Solo, I've got plenty to say about. Rogue One, I don't have a lot to say about, so...
I have a lot to say about Rogue One.
Okay, then.
Mostly bad.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll get there. But yeah, the good news is it mostly gets better from here.
Yeah, Solo's a fun time.
Yeah, Solo is my favourite of the Disney Star Wars films, but I want to save that till next episode when we actually talk about it in full.
I prefer Rogue One.
Okay.
Good, I can't wait to spell a few about this.
Yeah, okay. Alright, I'm out.
Alright, cool. Thanks, guys.
Goodbye, folks.
Bye.